With the final season of Bad Batch around the corner and confirmation that Asajj Ventress will be coming back from the dead, and rumors that maybe even Tech might be, I thought it would be a great time to count down the list of Star Wars resurrections in order of most believable to the unbelievable. Now on this list, I'll include a few characters who have died and have not been resurrected, but there's a lot of fan theories out there that some of these characters may have survived, so I'll also include where I think they land on the list. Now, starting with the most believable resurrection death, we have C-3PO. In Empire Strikes Back, he gets blasted into a bunch of pieces, but given that he is a droid, he can be easily repaired. Next, we have Asajj Ventress, who was killed by Dooku's Force Lightning. Given that she's a Night Sister and we've seen them resurrect the dead, Asajj Ventress coming back is no surprise to me. Next up, we have Rey, and I don't even really know why Rey died. Did she use too much power like Luke? But either way, after defeating Palpatine, Rey collapses and dies, only to be saved minutes later by Ben Solo. Given Rey's the main character of the sequel trilogy, there was a lot of plot armor surrounding this one, and I don't think many thought her death was gonna stand. Slotting in next, we have one of the hypothetical resurrections, and that is Tech. When Tech died, during my live review for that episode, me and Ged discussed whether or not we actually thought Tech was actually dead or if he'd come back. And after talking through, we both felt that the emotional impact of that episode really rests on Tech staying dead. So he's a character that we do not want to see resurrected, but hey, he fell through the clouds. We don't know what was on the other side of that, so if he does come back, this is the believability spot I have him in. Next, we have a whole tier of characters who all died in explosions with no body evidence afterwards. Trench, Gregor, Phasma, Echo, and Aura Singh. Ahsoka both dies and is resurrected in the Mortis arc. After the brother unalives her, I'm assuming most thought, given the mysteriousness and the power of the Mortis gods, that this was probably not the last we've seen of Ahsoka. And sure enough, the father uses the remaining life force in the daughter to save Ahsoka's life. Next up, we have Boba Fett as he falls into the Sarlacc pit to be slowly digested. And given that this happened in Return of the Jedi, it was decades upon decades until we finally got confirmation that Boba Fett did in fact survive. You can make a pretty believable case for this one given his Mandalorian armor and weapons at his disposal, and his resurrection ended up being one of my favorite parts of the Book of Boba Fett. Hypothetical resurrection coming in next, and it is Cad Bane. We see him get impaled by Boba with a gaffy stick, and after it seems that the life has left him, you see that little flashing light on his vest. So either Toto's coming to save him, or maybe Cad Bane has some other survival mechanism. I don't think it's the last we've seen of him. Plus, I loved his portrayal in live action and would love to see more. Cobb Vanth and Fennec Shand coming on the list together as they're both seemingly killed by laser blasts, with Fennec Shand getting mods and Cobb Vanth surviving via a Bacta tank. Under George Lucas, when characters engaged in a lightsaber battle, the loser typically lost a limb. That was his way to portray that they lost and there was some consequences. Now under Disney, that losing the limb has changed to being impaled by a lightsaber. We have 3 characters in this category, and that is the Grand Inquisitor, Reva, and Sabine, all 3 being impaled and surviving their wounds. And as you can imagine, we are starting to get into the much more unbelievable resurrections. The last hypothetical lands on my list right here, and that is Mace Windu. Yes, Mace Windu was shocked with Force Lightning. Yes, he lost an arm. And yes, he was flung out the window of a building. There are ways he could have survived, and I'll link a video in the top corner where I break that down. Next up, we actually have R2-D2. R2 was literally shot in the bucket by Darth Vader's TIE Advanced X1 using an LS9.3 laser cannon, which was much more powerful than the standard laser cannons found on TIE fighters. I don't have any sort of numbers on how powerful it was, but I would imagine that laser cannon directly hitting an astromech droid in the dome would have completely fried everything to the point where there'd be no point in even trying to repair that droid. Like, just get a new one, Luke. Now we're into the top 3, with Anakin Skywalker losing his limbs and being left for dead on the side of a volcano, burning up to a crisp. This part of the story was always planned, as this is how he transitions into Darth Vader. Those were some pretty gruesome injuries. Number 2, Darth Maul. Not only was Darth Maul completely sliced in half, he falls down that shaft to God knows where, but we find him years later living in a junkyard as a spider. And coming in at number 1, somehow Palpatine returned. Yes, not only does Palpatine get thrown down the reactor shaft into the reactor, the Death Star also blows up in a massive, massive explosion. And somehow Palpatine survives that, being the most unbelievable resurrection in Star Wars. So that'll wrap it up for my resurrection list. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing anyone, and let me know one character who should have stayed dead and one character that you want to see revived. Peace out, everyone, and we'll see you on the next video.